Like you said, I wasn't dealing with a chip on my shoulder because people were saying you're undersized, you can't play. Look, I said I made it this far. I never expected to make this far. It wasn't like I was groomed to be a quarterback from a young age. I'm just a kid from Sacramento, California, trying to play football. Yeah. And if I can live out my dream and make it to the National Football League, if it's at quarterback or whatever, it didn't matter.
I'm Leon Davis, and this is One Good Question. Hello, and welcome to this episode of One Good Question. I'm your host, Leon Davis. For those of you out there who haven't heard the podcast, One Good Question asks interesting people one good question, and then we allow their answers to speak for themselves. I hope everyone is doing well out there and finding ways to stay busy. I'm doing a lot of cooking, hanging out with the family, and then I'm also tending to a grapevine that we planted last year. This year, we should finally be getting some grapes off of it, so I will keep everyone up to date on the progress of that. Just in time for the NFL draft tomorrow, my guest today is Seneca Wallace. Seneca played quarterback for Iowa State University and was drafted in 2003 by the Seattle Seahawks. We talked today about his journey from a small high school in Sacramento, California, to the NFL, and what kept him centered as he continued to progress through each level. We also talk a little bit about his foundation, Joyce's Angels, which is named after his mother. I won't talk too much about that because he speaks about it in the interview, but I will leave a link in the show notes so that you can check out his foundation for yourself. Here's Seneca Wallace answering his one good question. Seneca, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm hanging in there.
How's social distancing treating you?
Social distancing is it's different, but it's fun. We were talking about this earlier, that I think it's added a different dynamic to just people's everyday lives. You can get to sit back and relax and kind of enjoy one another, do some more cookouts, more barbecues, hanging out in the backyard. I don't think I've ever done so much yard work and house stuff in my life. So, I'm becoming a very handy man around here. So I might be taking away a little bit of business from Ernesto, my handyman, but It's been good, to be able to sit back and just enjoy the family.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the same stuff, man. Been in the garden, fixing stuff, growing grapes now. I have a big, pretty grapevine. Right. That's really the only thing that I take care of. Everything else my wife takes care of. She has a big garden now.
I got you. We got one too, matter of fact, man. That's crazy because the wife, our neighbor next door, who ironically was actually from Sacramento as well, they moved next door. His job transferred her husband's out here. They ended up creating like this garden box right outside of our backyard. So now I think she said we got onions, cucumbers, bell peppers, a few different things. So, obviously we're going all organic here. So we might be having something new. This is another thing that we've gotten from this whole Corona deal. So, I mean, it's been good so far.
Yeah, so far so good. All right, man. Let me go ahead and get to your question. First of all, most fans know about your days at Iowa State before you were drafted in the NFL. What isn't well known is your path from your small team in Rancho Cordova. Mm-hmm. And then you did a brief stint participating with Oregon State.
Yeah.
And then you went on to play at Sacramento City College, and you actually started as a backup and had an opportunity to come in and start.
Mm-hmm.
So what kept you centered and motivated as you continue to excel at each level, each time the occasion presented itself?
Yeah, I mean, going through the process of high school and then transferring to Oregon State was very unique within itself. I was a highly talented recruit, one of the first out of Cordova High School where I graduated that actually got an opportunity to get a scholarship. So, when I was getting recruited during that year in 1998, I was just happy to be getting recruited. You know what I mean? There hadn't been up to that point, within the last 10 years or so before that anybody had received a scholarship out of our school. So, I was very excited about that. And then when I received my scholarship to Oregon State and got there, I wasn't a qualifier in high school. So what that means is that, getting ready to graduate, I had all the core classes to graduate on time, being English, geometry, And in California, you got to pass government and economics, I think it was. But I was short, actually. So I had to take 2 night school English classes that were a junior, 11th grade and a 12th grade. Right. And then I actually had another one in high school. So I had 3 English classes that I had to do in order to transfer to a Division I. So my counselors just put a lot of us athletes back then in classes that just worked for graduation. Right. But they weren't transferable to a Division I. So I had to hustle. I had to grind a lot my senior year, which I did. I got 11-10 on my SATs, ended up receiving my scholarship. And what they were going to do is petition my last English class, which was I needed 4, only had 3, right?
Yeah.
So they were going to petition that with the NCAA. And when they did, the petition didn't go through. We got letters from the principal of my high school, letters from the counselor saying they did this, they kind of screwed it up, and it didn't go through. And so, unfortunately, I had to leave Oregon State after being there for about August to maybe late September. And I ended up driving. I remember this day, my brother came up to pick me up, and we were driving back from Oregon, and it was about 11-hour drive. And he told me that my mom had cancer. And during that time in 1998, as a young kid, I'm only 18 years old. I think the worst. I'm thinking, oh, man, when is mom going to die? That's the first thing that comes to your mind because you don't know nothing about it. And so she ended up having multiple myeloma, what my foundation is for, helping raise awareness for multiple myeloma. But coming back, I went to a junior college, Sacramento City College. And like you said earlier, that, I got an opportunity. I think all the coaches at Sacramento City College understood my situation. They understood that I was going to Oregon State, wasn't a qualifier, and that I'll potentially be coming back. So they said, hey, you come back, you got an opportunity to come here and be the starter on our football team. And if anybody out there knows how junior college works, they usually give guys opportunities because it's a 2-year institution to play and then transfer to Division I. And so when I got there, there had been a quarterback there named Kevin Laird, who was a starter the year before, prior to me getting there. And so going into his last year, his sophomore year, my first year there, he was a quarterback. And I was fine with that. I came back. I wasn't sure if I wanted to play football. But to your question, what kept me grounded and kept me grinding through this process was the fact of my mom being terminally ill. In the back of my mind, I remember this conversation with my mom. I'm like, I don't know if I want to play football anymore. And I remember her telling me, it's like, look, son, I'm going to be okay. You just follow your dreams. You want to play football, go play football. I'll be okay. And, after I got my mom's blessing, I don't know what it was because I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. That window from me playing 99 and 2000 at my junior college in Sacramento to me playing 2 years at Iowa State was all like a blur. It went by so fast. I was up for the Heisman when I got to Iowa State after my first year, and I don't remember any of it. Because it was just in the back of my mind, I'm doing this because of I know what my mom's going through with chemotherapy. I know the stuff that is in the back of her mind and the things that she has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And for me just to go out here and play football and give the game 100% is nothing compared to what she has to go through on a day-to-day basis, right? So that was, my very – my driving force to be successful on the football field, but I never thought that it would take me to a career in the National Football League.
Amazing. As I did research, what I read a lot, like they always were trying to move you out of quarterback. Oh, yeah. So that was back in the day when it was hard for a black quarterback to come up as a quarterback if you're athletic. It was like,
awesome. Leon, it was tough, bro. I mean, because that was, back then it wasn't a lot of us. I mean, there was guys, Doug Williams and Randall Cunningham. There was guys that helped pave the way for us black quarterbacks, right? But there wasn't a lot of quarterbacks with I would say, I can't forget Warren Moon, that had that was short, undersized, mobile quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
You had your stereotypical Randall Cunningham was a 6+, as they say, pocket passing quarterback. So back then, they accepted him. Yeah. And obviously they had to accept the fact that he was of color.
Yeah.
Doug Williams, Warren Moon. So there were guys that did it, but there weren't guys that were 5'11", like myself and Mike Vick and other quarterbacks, right? So they didn't really accept that. And if you had a brother that was athletic enough to play something else, why not? Let's put him at a different position.
Yeah.
And so I had to really stick to my guns, going through the combine, going through that whole process and having to deal with the politics. It made it very, very difficult. But at the end of the day, I knew what I wanted to do. And shoot, I didn't really get proper coaching on the position until I really got to Seattle.
Yeah. So from what I read, was Holmgren was like he's always been going to play, so that's where he's playing. Like Holmgren was a big proponent of that.
Oh,
some of the quotes coming out of the combine were just horrible.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
it was people like Charlie Casserly, who was the GM of I want to say the Texans at the time, and now he's on ESPN.
That's the one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he wrote a whole long deal. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it was so many people who, that doubted me during that process. Oh, well, he will never play at the next level. He won't do this. He won't do that. And that's why I have a lot of respect for Mike Holmgren, and that's why I was so loyal to him for a long period of time, because he took, he gave me the opportunity to be a quarterback. And that's what he said that you're going to do. You're going to come here to Seattle. I remember our first conversation. You're coming here to play quarterback. And not one time, even though I got catches in the National Football League, but it wasn't forced by him. It wasn't like, hey, you need to go play receiver because you can't play quarterback. Yeah. Now, he kept the competition up year in and year out, was always bringing people in. And that was just part of his protocol. Always want to keep competition, healthy competition. He knew who his quarterback was going to be during that time. It was Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah.
But, he always pushed me to be better and to be great and to be a professional about it. And so I respected him for that. And that's why, I was so loyal to an extent, because I was there for 7 years. And I had an opportunity once I got playing time and I did well, where I potentially probably could have moved on to a different organization. But, I still remember him just giving me that first opportunity to make it. And for me to last as long as I did, I mean, I count every day I had when I was in the National Football League.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, because you don't have that typical chip on your shoulder when people do that. So you're very centered, and like mad respect for that, because it's hard to go through that kind of process and not build that kind of chip on your shoulder that drives you. Like, I mean, you might have it, but you don't let it define you. So it's really cool.
No, I mean, that just wasn't that wasn't me. I was a football player first, right? And so I knew what I could do on the football field. When I got the football in my hand, it was, I wanted to bring some excitement to the game, regardless if I was throwing it, running it, catching it, whatever, it didn't matter. For me to get to the point where, the pinnacle of my career when I was transitioning from college into the pros, it wasn't that I was dealing, like you said, I wasn't dealing with a chip on my shoulder because people were saying you're undersized, you can't play. Look, I said I made it this far. I never expected to make this far. It wasn't like I was groomed to be a quarterback from a young age. I'm just a kid from Sacramento, California, trying to play football. Yeah. And if I can live out my dream and make it to the National Football League, if it's at quarterback or whatever, it didn't matter. So I finally got that opportunity when I got to the NFL. And the switch had to turn on. And I had to now confine myself to be a pro and go about it the right way. And I've never been a person to this day. I'm not really on social media. I don't do that. So I don't read a lot of press and watch videos and this and that. I never was that type of person. So I just kind of kept that behind me and kept moving forward.
All right. Great. That's awesome, man. Having the opportunity to know you a little bit and then doing some research in preparation for the interview. It was just really cool to kind of see it all come together and just know the kind of person you are. So it's neat.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, man. So let's go ahead and get you teed up for the house question. Go ahead and let me know one piece of advice that you received, you didn't take, and then looking back, you wish you would have followed.
Ooh. One piece of information that I received that I didn't take. When I just think about that question, I think about my career, and I would probably say the preparation. I think me kind of maybe at the time when I made it, when you come from where you're the standard, I think this is the hardest part. You have to humble yourself very quickly. Because if you're not a guy, and especially back then, if you're not a guy who salary cap or number is very high, and you come from college where you're the number one guy, right? I'm up for the Heisman, and I'm the baddest thing since sliced bread for the first, 6 weeks or so. And then all of a sudden, we hit a wall. We're not doing so well, whatever. But then you're that guy in that space when you're in college. But then when you go to the pros, you're just another guy. They got their people. And so, you can get complacent with that when you make it. And it's like, okay, you can keep grinding. But at the same time, we already know who's going to be our guy, and that's how it was. They knew Matt Hasselbeck was their guy. So for me, I didn't prepare in a way that I should have, and that being, as the backup, you have to prepare a certain way. And a lot of people don't know this, but, obviously when you're preparing for a game, you don't get reps. You don't get reps with the number one team.
Yeah.
All you're doing is all the backup scout team stuff. So you have to be mentally prepared to be able to step into a game. And even at the same time, they put more pressure on the backup a lot of times than they do the starter. Because why? You got to step in with no reps at all and still have to win a ball game in the fourth quarter, down 3 with 1:15 on the clock.
Yeah, yeah.
So the preparation things that a lot of Trent Dilfer, Matt Hasselbeck, and a lot of the veteran guys that try to help me with that, which I took a lot of it, but at the same time, if you watch even Mike Vick's show, he talked about just his sheer athleticism, that he knew he could rely on his athleticism to get him out of any situation, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the knock on a lot of just black athlete quarterbacks, that we don't prepare, and it still is, that we don't prepare like white quarterbacks would, and so we rely a lot on that. So I think a lot of the preparation stuff that people try to tell me and how to be a pro, I wish I would have took advantage of that sooner in my career than I did later in my career.
Okay. All right. I like that. It's good. Yeah. Preparation, man. Preparation. We can all
Preparation's key.
That. Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Awesome, man. Well, before we finish up, I want to give you a little time to talk about your foundation. You mentioned it a little bit earlier in the interview, so I want to give you a little time to talk about that.
Yeah, it's joycesangels.org. We help raise awareness for multiple myeloma, which is the cancer that my mom passed away of back in 2007. And it's a rare disease, mainly found in a lot of it's a male dominant, very rare in females, but it's it affects the blood. But it's one of those deals with my foundation that a lot of people don't know a lot about it, and it's becoming a lot more common now. And I do these camps all summer long, from in Iowa. And I got a great team of people. Marlo Rockwell helps me run my foundation. Great friend of mine, Brian Chittigan, who's up in Iowa as well, part of Legacy Bank. They help out. I got a lot of sponsors that help out, Carl Chevrolet, and list goes on and on. But, we do some really good things with this up there in Iowa. And I want to start getting a little bit grounded here in Dallas and prosper once, this quarantine stuff is lifted. But the Joyce's Angels is one of those foundations that I'm very passionate about, obviously, because it's very dear to me, because my mom was there. That was my road dog. My mom was at every home game, every away game, if she could make it. I'm very passionate about Joyce's Angels. And you can see all that stuff online at joycesangels.org.
All right. Awesome. I'll include that link on the show notes also.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you very much, man. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this with me. It's always good to talk to you, man. So
all good, man. Anytime. We'll do it again.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. That was Seneca Wallace answering his one good question. Be sure to check the show notes to find the link to Joyce's Angels. Once again, I would like to thank Seneca for his time. I appreciate him joining us today on the podcast. Before I sign off today, I've left you with a little bonus. I've been working on a project where I've allowed my previous guests to present me with one good question. So today, be sure to stick around after the credits to listen to a little bit of my conversation with Matt Hongoltz-Hetling, who I interviewed back in episode 5. I appreciate you all listening today. Thank you very much. Until next time, This has been One Good Question. Once again, I'm your host, Leon Davis. Theme music by DJ Seth Lowry. Other music courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you may listen. To catch up with us on social, check the show notes.
This one's going to be fun because I'm going into the question cold, so it's cool.
Yeah. I was going to say that. You gave me the very kind courtesy of advance notice of my question. And I did not return that kindness back to you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I trust you're not going to give me anything too difficult, and if so, we'll work with it. I'll figure it out.
If you don't like it, just say pass. I will have another question in the barrel. So I thought, because I don't know a lot about you, ordinarily like the questions that I would ask you are kind of like, how old are you, and where are you from, and how'd you get into podcasting or the restaurant business, all those kinds of like basic questions that sometimes provide the basis for the more specific questions. But then I thought, well, one interesting question that might come no matter who someone is, like your house question. I like that because it invites self-reflection. All right, here's my question. Okay. Can you tell me about the time in your life when you were the most angry?
Most angry.
Yeah, maybe take a minute to think.
Yeah, that's going to take a little bit. So the hard part about that is that I'm really even-tempered. I do have triggers, though. Let's see.
I'm even-tempered, too. Even-tempered people have their moments, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're worse.
Yeah. I have those buttons. Yeah, and it ramps up pretty quickly, and I think that usually takes people by surprise when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this one's actually, we're gonna go way back on this one because this one really sticks out. But so I'll give you a little background. I grew up in a single parent household with my mom. My mom raised me and my three sisters, and my dad and I had always been kind of on again, off again relationships. And it was kind of just like looking back on it, I think I was probably 13, 14 years old when this happened. It's looking back at it, it was like I was just being a little bit of a petulant child. My mom always was really big about me revering my elders. And even with my dad and I's strained relationship, I always had this certain level of respect that I always held with him. My dad was always kind of, because my mom brought me up in the suburbs, and so he was always a little critical of me growing up in the suburbs. It was like around my birthday, and I think my dad, one of the many times he had said, yes, I'm going to do this, and then was trying to back out. And my mom was kind of on his case. And I can't even remember what specifically he said to me. He said something where I decided I wasn't going to do what he wanted me to do. Like, I think it was over like a CD player or something. Like, he said he was going to buy me a CD player. He was trying to back out. My mom was on his case. He decided we're going to do that. There was something about what he said to me and the way he said to me that I decided, you know what? I'm not doing this. and he's trying to physically make me go. So both my mom and dad are small in stature. My mom is probably about 5'3", and my dad was maybe 5'5". And at this time, I think I was already bigger than he was. On my mom's side of the family, I'm actually short as far as the males are concerned. I'm about 5'9". Almost every male on her side of the family is 6 foot or taller. But on my dad's side of the family, like, they're like, wow, you're really tall. I'm like, in what world are you living that I'm tall? But I wish I could remember what he said to me. He physically struck me. And at that time, like, it took all the energy in my body. And it's not that was the first time he had struck me, but it was the first time and the only time I can remember that I ever wanted to actually physically strike out and hit an adult, much less one of my parents.
That was a clip of me answering a question from Matt Hongolt-Tetling as part of One Good Question, Tables Turned. Be on the lookout for it in your feed starting this Friday.